Pushpin Story Breakdown. How Sara Blakely turned $5,000 into a billion-dollar empire. INTRO. The $5,000 gamble that changed fashion forever. It starts with a pair of scissors and a moment of frustration in a tiny Atlanta apartment. A 27-year-old woman, who has spent the past 7 years selling fax machines door to door, stands in front of her mirror staring at an outfit that just won't look right. Her name is Sara Blakely, and in a few seconds she's about to make a cut that will quietly rewrite the future of women's shapewear. She grabs her pantyhose, slices off the feet, and slips them back on. No rolling seams. No awkward lines. No discomfort. For the first time in years, something finally works. What she doesn't know is that this tiny DIY hack, done with $5 scissors and zero business plan, will grow into a billion-dollar company she will own entirely herself. No investors. No connections. Just $5,000 in savings and the kind of stubborn optimism you only see in people who have heard, no, more times than most people hear their own name. But before the world ever hears the word SPANX, before Oprah changes her life, before the Forbes cover, there's something else you need to understand. Sara didn't stumble into success. She built it from a life full of setbacks, rejection, and doorbells no one wanted to answer. To really understand how this empire began, we need to start where no one expects a billionaire story to begin: the life of a door-to-door salesperson. Section 2. The life of rejection. Before the billion-dollar empire, there was the grind. The kind of grind most people would quit after a week. Every morning, Sara Blakely walked into office buildings with a briefcase full of fax machine brochures, and walked out with nothing but doors closing in her face. Florida heat rising off the sidewalks. Her blouse sticking to her back. Receptionists shaking their heads before she even finished her pitch. 7 straight years. Most people hear a no and feel discouraged. Sara heard hundreds a day, and somehow found a way to keep smiling. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't luck. It was training. Because long before sales calls and doorbells, her father had a family ritual. He asked Sara and her brother one question at the dinner table. What did you fail at this week? Failure wasn't something to hide. It was something to chase. So when the LSAT beat her twice, when Walt Disney World rejected her for a job, when customers brushed past her like she didn't exist, she didn't collapse under the rejection. She absorbed it. She adapted. And somewhere in that endless stream of no, she built the resilience that would later hold up an empire. But all of this, the sweat, the slammed doors, the quiet self-reinvention, was preparing her for one moment that no one could have predicted. A moment that arrives one night, in front of a mirror, with a single idea that changes everything. Section 3. The night everything changed. It happened on an ordinary night, the kind where nothing should change your life. Sara was getting ready for a party, standing under the soft yellow bathroom light, staring at her white pants, and the pantyhose lines ruining the entire outfit. She tried everything: different underwear, different tights, adjusting seams that refused to stay hidden. Nothing worked. The fabric clung in all the wrong places, too tight here, too loose there, a familiar frustration for millions of women. And then, in a moment that felt more like desperation than genius, she grabbed a pair of scissors. She slipped off her pantyhose, cut the feet clean off, and pulled them back up. No seams. No bulges. No rolling waistband. Just smooth lines. For the first time in her life, Sara froze. Not because she thought she'd found her billion-dollar idea, but because she'd solved the problem she always assumed she had to live with. That's when the spark hit her. If I want this, how many other women want this too? She didn't have a fashion degree. She didn't have investors, connections, or prototypes. But she had the one thing every great founder starts with: a problem they know better than anyone else. And the moment she felt that first wave of excitement, one thought took over her mind. I have to make this real. What she did next would send her straight into a world she knew nothing about, a world where the word no was still waiting for her at every turn. To find out if her idea could become a real product, she had to face an even bigger challenge: convincing a manufacturer to take her seriously. Section 4. The quest for a manufacturer. Sara Blakely thought the hard part was coming up with the idea, until she started calling manufacturers. One by one, the doors slammed shut before they ever opened. She sat at her apartment desk with a notepad, a phone, and a list of hosiery mills in North Carolina, the heart of the American hosiery industry. Her palms sweaty, voice steady, she pitched her idea the same way every time. "I'm creating a new kind of footless pantyhose for women." And every time, the answer was identical. "No, not interested. Come back when you have a real prototype." Some didn't even let her finish the sentence. These factories had been doing the same thing for decades. They didn't want innovation from a young woman with no fashion background, no company, and only $5,000 in savings. By the 50th rejection, most people would have quit. But rejection wasn't new to Sara. It was her training ground. Then something unexpected happened. One manufacturer, who had already told her no, mentioned her idea to his daughters over dinner. They told him, "Dad, she's onto something. Women need this." The next morning, he called Sara back, his voice different this time. He invited her to the factory. For the first time, someone was willing to listen. Inside that North Carolina mill, the hum of machines, the scent of nylon, the rhythm of decades-old craft, Sara watched her idea slowly come to life. A real prototype. A real chance. But creating the product was only the first step. To get SPANX off the ground, she would have to put everything she had on the line, literally. Next, Sara takes her last $5,000 and makes the most important gamble of her life. Section 5. Putting it all on the line. Sara Blakely had $5,000. And she spent every single cent, not on rent, not on a car, not on anything comfortable. She poured it all into patents, packaging, and prototypes. She even wrote her own patent application. Late nights hunched over a tiny desk, the fluorescent light buzzing, coffee cups piling up like trophies of obsession. Every word mattered. Every dollar mattered. She photographed the first prototypes herself, using her roommate as a model. She designed the packaging, ran the numbers, and calculated shipping costs, all while balancing her day job selling fax machines. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Fear, on the other hand, was constant. Imagine the tension. One misstep, and her entire savings would vanish. One factory error, one buyer rejection, one misprinted label, and the dream could crumble before it even left the apartment. But Sara didn't just hope. She acted. She knocked on doors, made cold calls, hand-delivered samples. She became the walking, talking embodiment of her idea. Every no she had ever heard fueled her determination, and every late night sharpened her instinct. It was a gamble unlike any other, the kind where success felt impossible and failure would be devastating. But that is exactly what makes the next step so remarkable. She walks into a high-end department store and flips the entire script with one bold demonstration. Next, we see how SPANX enters the world of Neiman Marcus, and how a bathroom becomes the stage for her first big win. Section 6. Breaking into Neiman Marcus. Sara Blakely walked into Neiman Marcus with nothing but a box of samples and a heart pounding like a drum. She wasn't armed with flashy presentations or marketing budgets, just a simple idea and the conviction that it could change how women felt about their clothes. The polished floors of the luxury department store gleamed under bright lights, sales associates bustled around, and buyers glanced at her skeptically. When she reached the buyer, she didn't try to sell with words alone. She took her into the bathroom. That's right, a bathroom became her boardroom. Sara demonstrated her product right there, showing the difference before and after, letting the fabric speak for itself. The mirrors reflected her persistence, and the smooth, invisible lines of the SPANX instantly proved the point. It worked. The buyer was convinced. The first order was placed. Sara had turned a cramped bathroom into the launching pad for a billion-dollar brand. But the story didn't stop at one store. One Oprah mention would soon turn her fledgling idea into a nationwide phenomenon, and that moment was about to arrive. Next, we see how a single media spotlight transforms SPANX into a household name almost overnight. Section 7. Oprah changes everything. Then came the call that would change everything. Oprah Winfrey, the most influential woman in America at the time, had selected SPANX as one of her favorite things. Suddenly, Sarah's tiny apartment operation exploded into a national sensation. Overnight, shipping boxes piled up, phones rang off the hook, and her email inbox overflowed with orders she couldn't keep up with. Sarah watched in disbelief as the world embraced what she had built from $5,000, determination, and sheer persistence. The smooth lines of her shapewear were no longer just a solution, they were a symbol of empowerment for women everywhere. Every moment of rejection, every late night, every dollar spent on patents and prototypes had led to this moment. From her small apartment to national headlines, SPANX went from obscurity to household name almost overnight. But the story wasn't just about viral fame, it was about building a self-made empire, on her own terms, with full ownership intact. Next, we explore how Sarah turned this overnight sensation into a billion-dollar empire and became the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Section 8. The birth of a billion-dollar empire. From a single pair of cut-off pantyhose to a global brand, Sara Blakely had done the impossible. She retained 100% ownership of SPANX, a feat almost unheard of in the fashion industry, while her competitors scrambled for investors and partnerships. The hum of factories producing thousands of units each week, the bright packaging lining store shelves, and the rush of customers clamoring for her product, all of it was proof that a $5,000 idea and relentless persistence could reshape an entire industry. In 2012, Forbes named her the youngest self-made female billionaire. Her empire wasn't just measured in dollars, but in empowerment, the countless women who felt more confident, more in control, and more like themselves because of her invention. Every rejection, every sleepless night, every gamble had culminated in this moment. Sarah's story proves that vision, grit, and creativity can turn an impossible idea into an unstoppable force. Next, we reflect on the mindset and lessons that made SPANX more than just a product, a true blueprint for anyone daring to bet on themselves. OUTRO. The mindset behind the empire. Sara Blakely didn't just build a company. She built a blueprint for daring to bet on yourself. From a tiny apartment in Atlanta to boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, every step of her journey was fueled by curiosity, resilience, and an unwillingness to accept no as an answer. She transformed embarrassment into innovation, rejection into motivation, and a simple frustration with pantyhose into a product that changed women's lives worldwide. You can almost feel the hum of the factories, the rush of packing orders late at night, and the exhilaration of watching a vision take flight against every odds. Her story reminds us that success rarely comes from connections, capital, or luck alone. It comes from relentless belief, creative problem-solving, and the courage to act when no one else is watching. So the next time you face a problem that seems small, or a no that feels final, remember Sara Blakely, the woman who cut off her pantyhose, put everything on the line, and turned $5,000 into a billion-dollar empire. And that's the real lesson. The power isn't just in the product, it's in the mindset that dares to create it.